If this is a real thing, somebody please tell me where it's located. If it's not, somebody open a bookish bar because you could make bank on it. Just do it. That's a great investment. If that's not a thing yet, somebody please do it. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Allie. If you're new, hello. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you for not being sick of me yet. So today is our part 2 of our Enemies to Lovers book recommendations. If you have not watched the first part, I will link that for you in the description box down below. The first part was Enemies to Lovers specifically in the fantasy genre. So today is going to be Enemies to Lovers specifically in the romance drama. So if you want some more recommendations that are more fantasy based, go ahead and again check out the first part. Let's get right into it. So my first recommendation is Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I love Mariana Zapata. I'm a big fan of hers. This is sports romance, and because it's Mariana Zapata, it's also slow burn. So if you also like slow burn romances, Mariana Zapata is for you. So this follows Aiden and Vanessa. Aiden is an NFL player. Vanessa is his personal assistant. Aiden's super cold and kind of treats Vanessa like crap, and she eventually gets tired of it and quits because she just can't stand the way he treats her anymore. One day he shows up on her doorstep asking her for this ridiculously huge favor. Definitely complicates things. This is Enemies to Lovers. I think we all know what that means. People hate each other and then they don't hate each other and they end up falling in love. So I feel like that shouldn't be a spoiler alert, but yeah, that's what happens. I adore this book if you like sports romance. This also has like fake dating, marriage of convenience stuff in it as well. So that's also a plus for this book, but I definitely recommend it. Go read it if you haven't. And then next is a classic, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So this is a workplace Enemies to Lovers. This follows Lucy and Josh. They both work at this printing company. They both are up for promotion for the same job. They obviously don't like each other. Lucy doesn't really understand why. It's secretly because Josh likes her. All of that. It's a classic. If you just want an Enemies to Lovers in the romance, that's what this is. Baseline, that's what this is. And I adore it. I've obviously tabbed the crap out of it. It's great. I definitely recommend it. The banter is so cute. The scenes are so cute. It's a classic. That's all I can say. So next up is You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. So this is technically a second chance romance, but I feel like it fits into Enemies to Lovers. This follows Naomi and Nicholas. They are engaged, but their relationship is kind of on the rocks and they're considering breaking off their engagement because they don't feel like they're in love with each other anymore. And it's very much Enemies to Lovers. They do not like each other in the beginning of this book. They are both going out of their way to make each other's lives miserable, and they turn it around, and it's so cute. Again, the banter in this book, the scenes in this book, it's amazing. I definitely recommend it. Literally, it's just Enemies to Lovers, but they know each other beforehand. That's what I feel like most second chance romances. I have a couple second chance romances for this whole recommendation video, but this is probably one of my favorites, and it's so good, and I definitely consider it Enemies to Lovers. So if you have not read it, please go check it out. I think I 5-starred it. It's great. I adore it. Next is another classic, Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. So this is an LGBTQI+ romance, which is amazing. I love those types of books. I might end up doing a recommendation specifically for LGBTQI+ books because I honestly love that genre of books. I guess that's considered a genre. It shouldn't be a genre. It should just be a thing. So this follows Alex and Henry. Henry is the prince of, I believe, Wales, and then Alex is the son of the first female president. They're both coming into terms with their sexuality while being in the public eye. It's so cute. I adore it. Again, the banter, the scenes. I love it. Please go check it out if you haven't. It's another classic. I feel like you've seen it all over. If you haven't read it yet, please go do it. You're missing out. I 5-starred it. This is one of my all-time favorite books. I can't recommend it enough. Following that, again, one of our super popular books that we see all over, Beach Read by Emily Henry. So this follows Augustus and January. They are both authors. January is going through some family issues. Her father has recently died, and she goes and stays at his beach house to kind of clean everything out for him and just to see if it kind of sparks any inspiration for any books. She's kind of on this writer's block. In the beach house next to her is Gus, this boy that she ends up knowing from college, who is another author. They write different genres, but she hates him. They were competitors all through college. They kind of compete with each other with publishing, like how well their books do. Junior writes romance, Gus writes literary fiction. They make a bet that if they swap genres, whoever writes the better selling book, the other one has to hype up and recommend the other's book for like the next year. It's very cute. Again, again, banter, scenes, great. It's popular for a reason. It's super cute. I believe I 4-starred this. I enjoyed it. I didn't 5-star it like most people did. There was something missing for me, but I still 100% recommend it. It's popular for a reason, so go check it out. And then right up behind that, the one that usually goes with it, the Unhoneymooners. No, that's not what it is. The Unhoneymooners by Christina Warren. So this is, again, enemies to lovers. So this follows Olive and Ethan. Olive is the maid of honor and Ethan is the best man. So Ethan's brother and Olive's sister are getting married to each other. Ethan and Olive don't like each other. They don't get along. Unfortunately, the bride and groom fall ill and they aren't able to go on their honeymoon. So they basically give it up to Olive and Ethan because they're like, hey, we can't go. Someone else may as well. The catch is they have to act like they're married. Olive and Ethan have to act like they're a couple or else they're going to basically like get kicked off of this big expensive cruise thing. So it's also kind of fake dating situation because they have to act like they're a couple when they hate each other. Again, great banter, great scenes, popular for a reason. I definitely recommend it. It's another classic. So then next is the Addicted series, but specifically Kiss the Sky and Fuel the Fire, which is part of the Calloway Sisters spin-off series, and this is specifically Connor and Rose's books. So Connor and Rose, they have been academic rivals since middle school. They are both brainiacs. They like freaking speak to each other and like diss each other in French in random languages. I love them. Their banter is amazing. I love them as a couple. They are so cute. Connor is amazing. Rose is one of my favorite characters. They are part of the Addicted series. The Calloway Sisters is also a spin-off. You can read them alone if you want. I personally read them intertwined with the main series, but you can read them as spin-offs if that's all you want to read. It's just them specifically. I wouldn't be mad about it. I would still recommend you to read the whole series, but for enemies to lovers, specifically Connor and Rose's books, I definitely recommend them. So back to Mariana Zapata, Culty. Again, Mariana Zapata, slow burn. It's another sports romance. So this follows Sal and Culty. Sal is a professional women's soccer player, and so is Culty. This is also like an age gap romance. Culty is like one of the greatest soccer players of all time, and Sal as a child like looked up to him as a soccer player and like had his posters on his wall and everything. This guy is like my sports hero. I love him with all my heart. One day, Culty becomes one of the coaches for Sal's team, and she realizes that Culty's not exactly as great as what she thought he was. He's a jerk. He's mean. He's grumpy. She can't stand him. Obviously, later in the book, she very much stands him. It's very cute. This is one of my favorite Mariana Zapata books. I adore it. I can't get enough of it. This will forever be one of my favorite Mariana Zapata books. If you have not read it and you like slow burn, please go read it. It's age gap romance, but not in a cringy way. Like most of the times, I didn't even really remember that it was an age gap romance because sometimes age gap romances are a little bit too much for me. But this one is great, and I definitely recommend it. I 5-starred it. I can't get enough of it. So next up we have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This was one of my favorite romance reads of 2021. I definitely recommend it. So this follows Piper and Brendan. Piper is from LA. She's this big like social media influencer party girl. Brendan is just this small town fisherman from Washington. Piper ends up getting into some trouble, kind of an out of hand party, and her dad as a punishment sends her to Washington to this little fishing village that they have a little house in as a way to kind of find herself and figure out what she's doing with her life beyond outside in LA and partying, where she then meets Brendan, thinks that she's just a princess and can't do anything to help herself. Obviously, they end up liking each other. That's how these things work. I love this book. Definitely has some spicy scenes, so if you are not a spice person, there's some scenes that you might just want to skip over, but overall, it's not spice all the time, so you'd be able to just skip a couple chapters if that's not necessarily something that you enjoy reading. But I definitely recommend this book. It's one of my favorites. I think I 5-starred it. It's great. Brendan is probably one of my new favorite book boyfriends. I adore him. So next is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. So this follows Chloe in red. Chloe has chronic illness. She's constantly on medications, constantly in pain. So she just keeps to herself. She's kind of turned into a homebody because she doesn't like being in pain all the time, and going out and doing things makes her pain worse. She one day kind of decides that her life is boring and she needs to go do something. So she creates her get a life list, basically kind of a short-term bucket list of things that she wants to go do to try and make herself more fun and more interesting. And she recruits Red, who works in her apartment building, to help her. Chloe comes from more of a high-class family, so Red thinks that, again, she's just this prissy girl that hates everybody and thinks she's above everybody else and blah 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 blah. But she recruits Red to help her with this list. Again, they end up falling in love. I adore Red's character. It's so cute. He's, again, one of my new favorite book boyfriends. I can't recommend this enough. It's very cute and I adore it. So then, the literal classic enemies to lovers, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, the mother of all things enemies to lovers. I'm actually currently reading this. I'm about halfway through. It's great. It's quite literally the blueprint for enemies to lovers. If you haven't read it, take the time and read it. It definitely can be a slow read because it's such an old book and sometimes the wording is just like, for art thou whom the they. So it kind of does take a minute to get into it, just getting used to the writing style. But overall, it's a great storyline. I adore the movie, and it follows the book fairly well in my opinion. The blueprint of enemies to lovers. Please go check out Jane Austen. She's literally a classic literature writer, and she's amazing. I have most of her books, and I'm kind of going through a phase where I'm just reading all of Jane Austen's books, and I'm not mad about it. So, this now brings us to the Kindle section. All of these books, at the time that I'm recording this, should all be available on Kindle Unlimited. If you have that and you want to go check them out, they should all still be there. So, starting up, a classic for 2021 romance, Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I adore this book. It was one of my favorites. I believe I 5-starred it. I thought it was so cute. This is another kind of workplace enemies to lovers. It also has fake dating. So this follows Lena and Aaron. They work at the same tech company. Lena had broken up with her boyfriend about a year prior, and her sister is now getting married, and she doesn't want to show up to this wedding alone and see her ex that like ruined her life. So she's kind of scrambling to find somebody to take to her sister's wedding as a date. Can't find anybody. Aaron offers himself up because it's enemies to lovers. Hint hint, he secretly likes her. Spoiler, but also not spoiler alert. So she, kind of against her will, ends up taking Aaron, where they are in a fake relationship the whole time. Aaron, oh my god, this man. I am in love with him. It's that simple. This book is basically just kind of like The Hating Game on crack, like with a little bit more fake dating in another country. It's great. I can't recommend it enough. Please go read it if you have not. It's very popular for a reason. So next up, again, Mariana Zapata from Lukov with Love. This is another slow burn sports romance. So this follows Jasmine and Lukov. They are both figure skaters. They have grown up kind of competing against each other their entire lives. He is basically like an Olympian, like he's one of the best, and his teammate is injured, so he needs another duet ice skating partner, and they recruit Jasmine because the coaches think they'd be a good fit. Again, enemies to lovers, they don't get along. They eventually do. Their relationship is so cute. I have never really read like a figure skater sports romance, and I really enjoyed it. I kind of love that in a book now. I kind of want to read more figure skating books. I thought it was really good. Lukov, again, a perfect little boy. I love him with all my heart. Please go read it if you have not. Next is To Hate Adam Connor by Ella Mays. This is the second book in a duet, but you can also read it as a standalone. The first one is To Love Jason Thorne, but again, you can read it as a standalone. They don't necessarily have to be read in order, but this follows Lucy and Adam. Lucy has recently broken up with her boyfriend and now finds herself homeless because he kicks her out of the house. So she temporarily moves in with Jason and her best friend. They live next door to Adam Connor, who is this super famous actor, hottie single dad. So it's also a single dad trope if you like that, which I also adore. But she kind of like spies on him for fun because he's this hot single guy. I mean, like, who wouldn't? But she one day like actually saves his young son from almost drowning into the pool when he wasn't looking, and they get into an argument about how she shouldn't be spying on him and his invasion of privacy, and he's gonna sue her and blah 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 blah. Enemies to lovers, they absolutely hate each other at the beginning of this book. It's quite literally hate. They cannot stand each other at the beginning of this book. They fall in love. It's an amazing storyline. Adam, again, the men in these books, I love them. I can't get enough of them, but I definitely recommend it. It's very good. It's probably one of my favorite enemies to lovers. I definitely 100% recommend it. I 100% 5-starred it. It's so cute, and the relationship she has with Adam's son, adorable. I can't get enough of it. Please go read it if you haven't. So the next is the book Stealing Home, which is the second book from the St. Michael's duet. The first book is more friends to lovers, and the second book is enemies to lovers. I would recommend reading the first book first. I think that the second book would still make sense enough if you didn't read it, but this is friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, but also like second chance romance. So Brayden and Ashley have grown up all their lives. Brayden is her brother's best friend. Ashley has been in love with him her entire life. They end up getting together in like their high school years, but something happens and they break up, and she has not talked to him in years. He becomes this famous baseball player. He gets injured and comes back to town. And so the first book is basically their whole storyline from children to when they start dating and break up as high school students. And then the second book is second chance romance and kind of explaining what happened in the present day and how they're working through it. The second book is definitely enemies to lovers. She very much hates him for a very good reason, which is explained throughout the book. It's very good. I definitely recommend. Again, I would recommend reading the first book first, but if you don't want to and you literally just want enemies to lovers, I think that you'd be fine just reading the second book because it explains stuff well enough. I don't think you necessarily need the pretense of the first book. It's just kind of keep in mind that they also dated in high school and some drama went down, and that's why they are not together. St. Michael's duet, specifically Stealing Home. So then next is both Wrecked and Throttled by Lauren Asher. These are both companion novel series from a Formula One sports romance. I adored this series. There's 4 books in them. I've read all 4. I loved them. I 4 or 5-starred most of them. So Throttled is the first book. This is enemies to lovers in the sense that a teammate falling in love with another teammate's sibling. So it's enemies to lovers in that sense that they're teammates and the brother doesn't want them to be together. All of that. Very cute. I adored it. And then Wrecked is the Formula One racer and his PR representative. Again, very much enemies to lovers. A lot of hate in this, but I definitely recommend it. I recommend this whole series as a whole. It has fake dating, it has friends to lovers, it has the brother's best friend in the sense of their teammates, it has enemies to lovers, it has all the things. I definitely recommend the series as a whole. I also found that I really like Formula One romance. Again, didn't think that's something that existed or that I would like, but I love it and I want more of it. Next, the newest Colleen Hoover book, Reminders of Him. So this, I don't want to get in too much because it is a new book and I don't want to spoiler it for many people because I don't think it's one that people have gotten around to read yet, but I do consider it enemies to lovers. It has a little bit of family trauma in it. This is a mother who is in prison and has never met her daughter. Kind of has this weird one-night stand with a guy who she discovers is the one that's kind of taking care of her daughter. So then he's mad because it's the mom that ruined their lives and he's taking care of the daughter, and did she hook up with me because she's trying to get back into his daughter's life, or does she actually like me? I'm trying not to get too into it because I don't want to spoil it for people, but I definitely recommend it. It's one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books. I 5-starred it. The only other Colleen Hoover book that I 5-starred is Verity. That has been my all-time favorite Colleen Hoover book. And this honestly really read like a Mariana Zapata to me, and I adore Mariana Zapata, but I definitely recommend it if you kind of like the single parent thing. I love it. Our main male character in this book, I adore him. He's super cute. It made me cry. It's a very good storyline. If you haven't read it, please go check it out. You're missing out if you haven't read this yet. It's Colleen Hoover. It's hard to miss with her. So then next is Bet the Farm. So this follows Olivia and Jake. Olivia currently works in New York. She works for a social media marketing team. Her parents died at a young age, so she was raised by her grandfather who runs this farm. He has passed away, so she is going back to her hometown farm that she grew up on to kind of handle all the assets, take care of things. Where Jake works, they have known each other since childbirth. He's a boy that her grandfather took in as a young age and kind of raised as a second child. So he has a lot of attachment to the farm. The farm is on its last leg financially, so she kind of comes up with all these ideas to keep the farm running. Jake doesn't like them because he doesn't want the farm to be a sellout. So they don't like each other because they have differences in opinions of how the farm should be run. It's super cute. I live on a farm, so I thought it was a cute storyline. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I recommend it. Definitely enemies to lovers. So the next up is Bad Cruz. This follows Cruz and Tennessee. They have siblings that are getting married, so they are all going on this family vacation cruise together. Tennessee is put in charge of booking her and Cruz's tickets. She accidentally books the tickets for the wrong cruise, so they are separated on an entirely different cruise from the rest of their family. They don't get along. They've known each other since high school. Tennessee got pregnant in high school and had to like drop out and everything, so everyone in her town kind of looks down on her, and so does Cruz, so they obviously don't get along. So it's got some of the forced proximity in it, which is cute. I think I 3-starred this book. It wasn't my favorite enemies to lovers storyline wise, but I still liked it. I still finished it and I definitely recommend it, but it wasn't my favorite just because it's definitely got some misogyny in it from the way that she's treated in the town, but it's also part of the storyline, so I don't know. It was a 3-star for me. It wasn't great, it wasn't terrible. There are some things I definitely liked about it, there were some things that I wasn't. But Cruz, I liked his character. I liked the way that he kind of pushes Tennessee to kind of step out of the role that everyone has forced her to be in. She kind of has taken up the part of the messy girl that got pregnant young and doesn't know what she's doing with her life, and Cruz kind of pushes her to get out of that role, and he's like, no, that's not who you are, change the narrative about yourself. So I like that aspect of it, but I do recommend it. It's got forced proximity, it's enemies to lovers, so yeah. So the next is The Enemy Trap. This follows Hayes and Sophia. Again, they've known each other since they were in high school. They don't get along. It's literally The Parent Trap, but with a couple. They get trapped on a ship to try and work things out. I 2-starred this book for one reason. I'm recommending it for this reason. This is a pregnancy trope book. I am not a pregnancy trope person, so that alone made me not a fan of this book. So I 2-starred it in the sense that I don't like pregnancy trope books. I'm still recommending it because it's not a trope of book that I like, but it can most definitely be a trope of book that other people like. So I'm still going to recommend it because it was a cute storyline. I'm just not a pregnancy trope person myself, but if you are, then I definitely recommend it. But basically, their best friends trap them on this boat. Sophia ends up pregnant. Yeah, enemies to lovers. Storyline is cute. I like Hayes' character. He's very supportive and loving and caring. But yeah, if you like pregnancy tropes in your enemies to lovers, then I definitely recommend it. If you like me and you don't, I wouldn't recommend reading it because it's basically a big pregnancy trope book, and if you don't like it, you're not gonna like it. Moving on. So along with Pride and Prejudice, we have one of the many Pride and Prejudice spin-offs, Pride and Papercuts by Stacey Hart. Pride and Papercuts. It's obviously a modern kind of spin retelling on Pride and Prejudice. So this follows Liam and Lainey. Lainey works at this bookish bar with her brother. It's like a bookstore that has a bar in it. Lainey ends up becoming a partner with Liam's company to help get more customers and stuff. She kind of overhears Liam saying that he's better than them because he makes more money and he's of a different class and all that. So obviously she hates him because he was a dick. It's got some kind of workplace romance in it. It also has a subplot romance of Liam's sister and Lainey's brother, and they're also freaking adorable. I almost love them more than Liam and Lainey. It's cute. I think I 3-starred it just because it's simple. A Pride and Prejudice enemies to lovers retelling, you know what's gonna happen. It's a fairly short book, but yeah, Pride and Papercuts. And then lastly, we have the Ravenhood series by Katie Stewart. I have read the first 2 books in this series. I have not read the last one. The thing with these books is I don't know how to explain them. I don't think anyone does. Any like booktube or book talker that I've watched that have read this has all said you have to go into these books blind, and no one has ever explained them to me. It definitely has enemies to lovers in it. Like, even if I wanted to explain them to you, I really don't even know where to start. I have no idea. It wasn't my favorite series. A lot of people 5-starred this and they were obsessed with it. It was okay for me. I felt like I was confused half the time. Again, definitely has enemies to lovers in it. Definitely has smut, so if you're not a smut person, you will not like this series. Like, you'd be skipping solid chunks of multiple chapters. I definitely recommend it. It's got, let's see, it's got enemies to lovers. It's got, I guess, like a little bit of age gap romance. It's almost like it's kind of like this weird little cult thing they've got going on. I would assume that if I read the 3rd book, it would explain things better and I wouldn't be as confused as what I am right now. I haven't read the 3rd one yet because I was so confused and I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue with it yet. And I think at some point I'm going to read the 3rd one. I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I still would recommend it. A lot of people liked it. I feel like I'm one of the few that didn't. It's definitely enemies to lovers, more specifically in my opinion the 2nd book than the 1st one. Don't read the 2nd one as a standalone. I was confused already, but I feel like if you just read the 2nd one just to have the enemies to lovers, you're gonna be more confused than what I could ever imagine. So I would definitely recommend reading them in order. So yeah, this has been my enemies to lovers recommendations for the romance genre. Again, if you want some fantasy recommendations, I will have a link below my first part to this video, which is all my enemies to lovers. series for fantasies. Please go check it out if that's also something you're interested in. Probably keep doing like enemies to lovers updates as I read more books. Once I compile enough to do another video, I will definitely do a whole nother video on more enemies to lovers romance and more enemies to lovers fantasy, but it probably won't be for a while. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Let me know if I gave you guys some new recommendations. I hope I did. If you read any of these, what did you think about them? Do you agree with me saying they're enemies to lovers? But yeah, thank you guys for hanging out with me. I really appreciate you being here. Please stay safe. I love you, and I will see you guys somewhere else on the internet. Bye.